spray. Confetti, confetti, confetti. We have a winner of Survivor 48. We finally have reached it, the big finale of the season. Congratulations to Kyle on winning the season. I have to say, I've been doing Edgic every single episode to try to guess who the winner was going to be. I did not have Kyle at my number one spot. Big yikes from me. I know a lot of people did, but I still, I always gave him a shot. And so, big congratulations. A very well-deserved victory for Kyle in the finale of Survivor 48. And I'm hopping on here today. I'm bringing back Carson and Josiah, my guests from earlier in the season, and we're just talking about the season at large, doing the final Edgic ratings for the final 5 players. And then, of course, I want to promote that I will be back in the future. Do not worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'll talk more at the end of the video about it, but I'm definitely have some off-season content planned, and then we'll be back for Australia versus the world and Survivor 49 as well. And, of course, go check out Survivor Northwestern Into the Gauntlet if you use Survivor Fix. I'm on there. It's going pretty great so far. We've had some great people doing Edgic for it that I really, really appreciate. So go check that out if you're looking for some more Survivor. Welcome, everyone. As you can see, I've got my fabulous guests from this season of Survivor 48 joining me once again, Carson and Josiah, coming back for a little round table talking about the finale of the Edgic of the season. But real quick, before we get into the Edgic, we have to explain what Edgic is. So, Carson, can you tell me what the first part of an Edgic rating is?
C
on the spot.
Or M. We're looking if they're complex, middle of the road, or under the radar.
Oh, yes. And what? There's one more.
Visibility.
That's the second part.
What's the number mean?
wait. No. We're not there yet. OTT stands for over the top.
I understand the concept of Edgic, and I'm happy to talk about it, but the actual letters, I don't know.
Really?
I'm very
There's
sorry
not that many
to say
combos.
that I was faking it the entire first video, but every time I would be like, I think they're complex, I think they're under the radar. I was just like, North's going to grab one of those letter things and put it on there, and I'm going to be cool with that.
It all comes out. Carson exposed in the first 2 minutes of the video. He's a fake educator.
Quiz me, North.
He's the mole. Carson's the mole. Okay, Josiah.
Yeah, and also over the top. I forgot about that one.
Josiah, what's the second part of an Edgic rating?
It is a visibility ranking between 1 and 5.
Okay, well, yeah, that's the third part, I guess.
Oh, wait. It's a tone. So positive, neutral, or negative.
Or no tone. Wait,
Or
positive,
no tone.
Neutral, negative, or mixed tone.
Oh, sorry, mixed. Positive, mixed, or negative. I got my
Or
ends
neutral
confused
tone.
here, too.
Yeah.
It's
And
hard,
then,
man. There's a lot of letters on that screen
There
right
is
now.
a lot of letters.
hey, we got lots of letters to go through. And then finally, of course, the visibility rating, 1 through 5. So we're going to give each and every person an Edgic rating based on what their rating was like in the finale in the chart, and then talk about this season at large in general. So first, let's just purely talk about how are you guys doing? How you feeling? How did you feel about the finale? The winner of Survivor 48, we can officially declare. Kyle, congratulations. What are your thoughts on the finale and how it went?
Well, are we allowed to give David another over the top even though he wasn't in?
Maybe, honestly.
Because, listen, that made me laugh so hard, but mostly because I was kind of cringing, and I find cringe comedy really funny. As far as the finale goes, I think we actually, editing-wise, walked into this finale without a clear winner in the edit. And I think that sometimes that's fun. And I liked going into Final Tribal Council kind of suspicious and thinking it was probably going to be Kyle, but I wasn't confident that it was going to be Kyle when we were walking in. And I think that's their job. I don't think they always execute on having multiple members of the top three be possibilities, but I think they actually left it up in the air to me as a viewer going in. And I was happy with the outcome. So they kind of met both. They met me being a little uncertain and they met me being pleased with the outcome at the same time, which is the goal, I think, of a winner's edit and the goal of a finale. Listen, Kyle as a winner, I think some people will maybe criticize this season for being a little boring. I think that you don't get to pick the season you're on. I think Kyle played a great game in this season. I think he is a lot to be proud of. I think he played an excellent game with a lot of patience and great timing. He did a great job with relationships. He understood what people were looking for on the jury and in the game. And I think he can really hang his head up high as a very, very solid winning game. I would be very interested to see him play again in a new cast that has different values. Yeah, I mean, I think that editing wise, the finale was fun. I was kept on my toes. And I'm really, I have mixed to positive views of the season in general. But I think is all over the place with people these days.
Decided you want to expound upon that?
Yeah, I'm trying to be I don't know, diplomatic here because I disagree. I really didn't like this season, but I do have a fun time talking about why I consider 48 a bottom tier season. I'm going to say it right now. I think it's bottom 10, possibly bottom 5 for me. This is all
Okay.
subjective. This is all
Okay.
subjective. I did not like this season, especially the post merge. That said, I'm not trying to discount Kyle's winning game. I agree with Carson that for this game and for this cast, he played the way he had to play to win, and I think it led to uninteresting television. Um, that said, I also like for a while I've been thinking Kyle was winning. And maybe that's me looking into Edgic. Maybe that was just how I felt like the seasons was like progressing with the edit. But I would say I predicted beforehand exactly the placements 5-4-3 or 5-4. And then I honestly thought my biggest surprises here were that Eva won more votes than Joe. I thought that would be flipped at the end. And then also the Kamilla come from behind win at the Final Five challenge. That also surprised me a little bit. Just because it was an exciting challenge. It was very much a come from behind win during that. But for the most part, I thought this finale kind of plodded on. I kind of thought the things that were happening were relatively predictable. And I did think Kyle himself was a predictable winner, even just going back a couple weeks. But, you know, I'm here to also hear all the positive things you guys have to say about this season, even though I really disagree.
I feel like I have like the angel and the devil on my shoulder here, like telling me to like this season, don't like this season.
It's all your personal value. So, like, I don't care if you really like the season. Just for me, I honestly, and this might sound crazy, I was thinking this might be my least favorite season that I've seen since I started this Survivor group that Carson has been part of. And that includes season 39. I think I might prefer 39 over 48.
Let's explore that.
That is insane.
I want to hear what your criticisms of this season are, because I think there's a lot of genuine ones that are worth talking about, and I think there are some that are just taste too.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, beyond there being a couple of straightforward votes, which I found boring as well, I'm curious what like your takes were on what makes this a bottom tier season.
I think it's beyond like the strategy or the lack of strategy. I think that is like an example of where the season kind of lagged. But honestly, for me, I just had trouble connecting with characters. And I watch Survivor as a character first show, not as a strategy first show. And that might be a little bit different because I am on this video talking about Edgic, which is very logic based. But I will say my favorite moments of any Survivor season are the times I laugh. And while I think you guys found certain things funny, I didn't really like enjoy like David's antics as like, oh, I'm laughing out loud moments, you know? In general, I just found for me, a disconnect between myself and a lot of the people on this season. And so, I think I had trouble connecting character wise with anyone. Like toward the end, I was rooting, and rooting is a strong term, for Kamilla, but it was kind of my default as I didn't like Joe, Eva, or Kyle, or Mitch. So I was just kind of like, ugh. And like, I know that sounds so negative, but like for real, I didn't like any of these people in the post merge. For a moment, I liked Mary, and then I didn't care about her because she was gone from the edit. For a moment, I liked Star, and she was also gone from the edit. And so like I found myself again finding it difficult to like care about this season once Say left. I feel like, again, and I said this the last time I was on Nort's video, Say brought so much energy to the season, and for me, I thought the energy evaporated as soon as she left. I thought people were playing the game so safe, voting out Cedric, voting out Chrissy. Then this big move happens to vote out David, and you think things are going to shake up, and instead you get like 3 of the most boring episodes ever following it. And it's just such a letdown to what could have been a shakeup. And so I understand part of it is the strategy. I feel like the strategy lacked. But on top of that, I feel like the characters didn't deliver when the strategy lacked. And I recently watched South Pacific, and that also has a pagonging. And that also people criticize for having, the worst stretch of episodes or whatever. But those are shorter episodes, and they even like truncate a lot of the votes together. They put multiple votes together, and so it just kind of breezes right by. These episodes went on and on, 90 minutes to just show what you know is going to happen. Like, ugh. I don't watch Survivor for that. So, sorry, that was probably too long of a rant. You can cut this from your video.
That was good. It'll give some insight. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like this season a lot more than South Pacific. I definitely
love South Pacific. Just want to put my hat out there.
What, Carson?
I think it's a decent season.
That season that's the worst season.
It's like a case report. It's like so unique, and it's so ritualistic in a way that I just find interesting. Again, it's like people who like Gabon,
I love Gabon. That's a sensible opinion.
I mean, it's just South Pacific is not the topic of conversation. We're talking about this season, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. The strategy didn't leave me blown away really ever in this season. I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, holy crap, they really invented something new, or that was genius. The closest we got to that, I think, was probably when they voted out Shaheen, and this idea was being discussed about how you can make people lose more than one way. And one of the ways to make someone lose is to completely invalidate their game, and then like weaponize that at tribal council or final tribal. And I like that. I think that's super true. And so like this idea that like, instead of voting out Joe because he's the biggest threat, why don't we just like play the shit out of him so that we have a leg up on final tribal? I like that like level of strategy, and it was probably the most interesting strategy I saw in the whole thing. But like, other than that, if we're just talking about, the characters, I agree. Star and Mary, like huge personalities that got muted because they had to, not make it that far, and they had to give us all this time for one alliance that really ran the whole thing. The pacing was like, I think okay, because they built up David as this villain, bang. They built up Shaheen, bang. Like we had a couple of moments, but it certainly was not week to week insanity and craziness. And I don't need it to always be to be like a satisfying season for me. But this one, I get how people could feel like it was more boring than your average season. We spent a ton of time talking about feelings and emotions, and some of it got repetitive. Some of it was like the same feelings over and over and over again. Did I feel extremely heartwarmed by Joe's story? I did. Like, I felt touched by his story and his reason for being out there. I felt connected to Eva. I felt connected to Kyle and like what he'd been through. And it's just like, Jeff loves these moments, right? That's what he's looking for now. And one of my biggest criticisms of Survivor is when you cast for the story and somebody goes home in 15th place, you have to squish it in before we feel connected to them. and before we feel any before we really feel strongly about who they are. And because we got these stories deep and piece by piece, I feel like they worked for the finalists and stuff. But it really was like, it was not a traditional new era Survivor season at all.
Hey, they squished it in for Banu. Okay, that worked great. Felt super connected with Banu.
Didn't work great for Banu.
Got to bring back the Banu support. Okay,
Banu's on this cast. Banu's like totally third place.
Banu's winning Survivor 48.
No, I think Banu and Mitch filled the same criteria, so they probably would have gotten rid of him right before the end.
I think that, listen, these are both good points. I think I've always said as well, I like Survivor for the characters, for the stories. Mm-hmm. I don't care at all about crazy stuff happening every episode, as long as it's a good story, a good overarching arc, and I still am compelled by each episode. I think that this is a season that, like, I feel like I do like in some respects, and I feel like especially people forget. Pre-merge, people were like, wow, episode 3, one of the craziest councils ever. Episode 5, one of the best episodes of Survivor of all time. And it was like, bam, bam, bam. And then now at the end, it was like, this is the worst season ever. I'm like, well, what happened to, there was still great stuff early on that I think that, everyone says Survivor 46 is the best season of the new era. And they completely forget that the pre-merge was terrible and everyone hated it, right? So, don't judge the whole season as a whole based on certain pieces that weren't so good, I guess, right? That would be...
No, I agree, and I would even say, in general, I think the fan base is too results-oriented, and people care too much about who the winner is and how the end game is. Because I totally agree. I think people hold both 45 and 46 in super high regard, even though both pre-merges really suffered. 45 with both quits, 46 with the whole Banu storyline. And so I'm not trying to discount anything from the 48 pre-merge. And again, it's all personal and subjective. I was not super high on the 48 pre-merge, even though there were interesting tribals. I thought the tribals were interesting, but I thought the episodes were not as interesting. But yes, I totally agree. I think people, when they assess a season, should assess it from start to end and not just be biased by the last taste on their tongue, which is who won the season and how that happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Strangely, I think the last taste of this season is one of the better bits of it for me, because Kyle is someone that I think played a great game. I think that it's agreed upon in the greater sphere, too, that Kyle's a better last taste than maybe if Joe or Eva had won this game, even though I don't find myself as critical of them as some other people do. But yeah, when we lose people that are bringing kind of the drama, that are bringing the chaos, when we lose Cedric, who's like, he's like shooting boats everywhere at anybody he can look at. You lose some of that action-packed feeling. If I were playing on this season, I wouldn't give a crap that it was boring. I'd say, I won. I'm Kyle. This is what I need to do. But when you're watching Survivor, am I going to watch this one again? Probably not soon. I don't know that I'm going to, watch it again soon. What are the ones that I want to watch again? The ones that get my heart pumping a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I definitely think, I think you're right. This season, I think, could have been improved a lot with only 60-minute episodes instead of 90-minute episodes. Because
I will always be a 90-minute truther.
Oh, really? No matter what?
Because if we did 60 minutes, you think they're going to cut what you want them to cut? No, they're not going to cut what you want them to cut. They're going to cut the stuff that I want to see. The camp life. They're going to cut the small moments of connection. But
maybe we wouldn't have to hear Kyle and Kamilla say that the most secret alliance of all time 8 trillion times every single episode.
Oh my God, okay? Yeah.
It's the only thing they talked about, apparently. They talked for 30 seconds, they said, every day.
I did see someone, I don't know if CBS is ever going to change this format, but if they change to a dynamic episode specifically for streaming, I think that would improve the show, because you could have 90-minute episodes during the pre-merge when you're just trying to get to know everybody. But then when the cast itself gets smaller, you can also cut the episode, so you don't have to see Kyle and Kamilla talking about the same thing every single episode. And I think that kind of format, that would be a little bit more dynamic, because you're not trying to format in commercials and to try to fit a very specific length. That would improve the show. But of course, we're not really here to talk about what would improve the editing of the show.
Lots of ideas. Put me
but
on
I think in terms of like this season, I liked a lot of it. I love Joe. I'm obsessed with him. I think he's fantastic. But in terms of like the edit overall, I do feel like the edit of this season let it down a little bit in terms of not just the 90-minute episodes, but as we said, there were also so many people that really got undercut. We barely saw Mary. We barely saw Star. We barely saw Chrissy. Like there's a lot of people of this season that the edit was very imbalanced, and in some ways the edit this season made Edgic very fun because it was very hard to predict who would win. But in terms of the normal viewing experience, it was just a very strangely edited season. And I've seen people compare it to Survivor Samoa, in that like people like Survivor Samoa was a season that was like really weirdly edited and really like didn't give any like indication or help in how to like do Edgic or stuff in the future, because it was just, it was basically like, hey, we got to build up Russell for season 20, right? Yeah. And so whatever the reason that this season was edited this way, whether it just happened to be, or if they are trying to build up like Joe for 50 or stuff like that, like people are speculating, whatever it may be, I do think that this season had a very strange edit overall. And it definitely, I don't think that it's going to give too much importance towards future Edgic analysis.
Listen, the Joe for 50 theory is one that I ascribe to. I don't think you give this type of edit to somebody who gets third normally. However, I think some of the things that we need to think about when we're looking at an edit is how unavoidable were some of these moments. Like, how do you have to include some confessionals? If somebody gets a bunch of confessionals in an episode because they went on a journey, I don't think that means to me that they've got a better chance of getting fourth or first or yada yada. It's just kind of like, what happened? This has to happen. I think Joe was in a lot of this has to be on the show moments this season, and his screen time went up because of that. And when we actually saw Joe in like a traditional episode, a lot of the time, I think they were critical of him in a good amount of episodes. We saw episodes where, like when we had our last talk north, we thought he was losing to Eva because of his poor jury management, edit, right? And he did. He lost to Eva by one vote, not for the win.
Not in the way that I expected, but...
Not the way I expected either. But, like, I think his amazing moments were must-includes, and he just made that happen by being present in those moments. But it wasn't necessarily like they were giving him copious amounts of screen time in a winner's edit type of format where it's unnecessary, where we hear from him a ton on a time when his tribe's not even going to tribal council, or we hear his dissection of why the vote's going down the way that it is when we could have heard that from somebody else. It's like we heard from Joe in all these massive emotional moments that were very powerful. But if we're looking at an Edgic edit, I think I can see why he was not given a winner's edit here.
Yes, I agree with you, Carson. And I also just want to give 48 a little bit of credit, even though I didn't like the season. I think the editing overall was massively better than Samoa. So while I see why someone might compare, I think these are apples and oranges. And I think you should actually pull up the actual confessional count, because there was essentially nobody on this cast who was purpled. Like, someone might argue someone like Chrissy was under-edited, but there was no one on this cast who was completely disregarded by the edit. And I think Samoa, like, over half of the cast gets that. So, like, I don't think the editing was really that off. And even here, and I know it's just looking at the total number, Joe had so many fewer confessionals than Eva or Kyle, especially Kyle. So I wouldn't say his edit was at all overbearing. And I think, like Carson said, his edit was mostly to do with the emotional moments. So I think his edit was fine. I do still understand, though, based on his edit being so over the top emotional, that certain people watching the show might be surprised or blindsided by him getting third place.
Yeah.
We'll get more into that when we break down each character, but I do think, like, in terms of like the 50 theories and whatnot, I'm a little bit speculative because, like, with Russell, he was like the biggest person, whereas with this, like you know, as we said, Joe was only ranked 4th out of 5th in confessionals of the finale people. So I mean, I don't super think that is incredibly important, but it's a possibility for why this season was kind of strange and difficult to predict.
Did Say get a Survivor 50 edit?
True. I mean,
I think
Say's
so.
edit is so much more abnormal than Kyle's edit is, even. Like, she gets more confessionals than every single person until you get up to Shaheen, and she still got more confessionals than Mitch.
Yeah. That's crazy. Poor Mitch. In the finale. Okay, whoa, wow. Okay.
Okay, with the finger wag.
Have you guys seen that GIF?
Yeah, I have
It's
seen
fantastic. Okay, so we can dive deeper into talking about each person when we talk about their Edgic, and then we'll do like a contender reflection on the 5 contenders for the finale after. So I guess we can just start at the top and go down. In terms of Kyle for this episode, what are we thinking for an Edgic rating?
What do those letters mean again? I'm kidding.
I would say he gets a complex personality again. It looks like you've been giving him that for weeks in a row. I'm trying to remember if his tone was positive, but I kind of think with him being the winner and getting so much content in the finale, it kind of has to be positive. Maybe you guys don't agree, though, and you feel like the show didn't totally paint him up for that winning potential up until it happened.
I think it did paint him up for winning potential. That's a contender issue, not an Edgic rating issue. But I think in terms of the Edgic rating, I actually feel like he maybe had the least positive finale of the 5, like in terms of tone. I think his complex personality, I mean, I feel like it was pretty straightforward for Kyle. I mean, he had the moment where he said he thought about throwing himself into fire for Eva. But other than that, I don't know if there was, like, positive tone for Kyle. Do you have any other moments?
I mean, are we talking about the tone for him, or are we talking about his visibility? Because
tone
the tone.
First, and then
Just the
visibility.
I'm just saying that I think maybe he got a positive tone, but maybe he wasn't quite as... I mean, he was very visible, but I think that they gave a lot of oomph to a couple of these other players to catch them up a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know. I would say, like, again, it's kind of hard to talk strategy when you're only talking about the final 5, but him deciding to put Kamilla on fire, which was probably a direct result of her saying that she would do the same thing to him, that is shown as him, like, having positive agency in his game and probably his winning move, because at least based on what the jury said, he would have lost to Kamilla. But is that positive? Probably not. I think you're kind of convincing me, North, that it's just a toneless CP.
I think it might be another toneless, complex personality. I'm thinking either 4 or 5, relatively speaking.
He gets some confessionals about, like, his job. He gets some moments at Final Tribal where they're like, "Oh, you're, like, so smart," and, like, he, you know, harkens back to his story about when he was incarcerated. And I think that those emotional moments were there. And I don't see any negative moments. I don't think it's a PP. I can go with CP4, but I think
there is an absence of negativity, though.
Absence of negativity.
Hey, I mean,
But does that make positivity? Probably not.
I'm foreseeing the future of these ratings, and so I'm happy to give them positive, but I have an interesting thought of where this is going to go if we do. So we can give them positive.
Well, let's keep CP4 for now, and we'll just think about it.
Okay. Let's talk about Eva. What's Eva's rating in the finale?
Ooh, yeah.
She actually kind of killed her final tribal council.
She did.
She had the best final speech. She just got the big swelling music. I thought that was a really good pitch, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I
Mhm.
think the one moment in it that she was kind of caught off guard was when Kyle took credit for the Shaheen vote. But other than that, I would say her final tribal was at least more interesting, more dynamic than both Kyle or Joe. And I think for like acknowledging Chrissy's question of like how can you differentiate your game from Joe, she did so much better a job than they showed him doing to her. And so I think that itself was like positive, but I definitely don't think she had a positive episode. They showed her crashing out multiple times, and I don't know how much of that would factor into a negative rating, but I think showing that much emotion, that much I don't know, just crying and like having difficulty both in the fire making, the practice of the fire making, then the wind in the fire making, um also during the last challenge, like there were a lot of very emotional moments for Eva where it seemed like the game had kind of gotten ahead of her. And so that makes it hard for me to see exactly. I guess she would also have a complex personality because there's obviously so many things going on.
They used all those moments to like give positive edits to other people. But I agree that I don't necessarily think that they were giving her a positive edit in that moment. It was more like, look how thoughtful Joe is. Look at how kind Kamilla is for being nice during the fire making, or Kyle. They like took those opportunities where she was struggling to show how everyone kind of rallied around her. Um, I think by and large they gave positive edits to basically everybody
That's
in
what I was
this
kind of thinking,
finale.
yeah.
But if any of them didn't get a positive edit, and I know you were saying like you think that might be Kyle, I think the person that might have not got a positive edit to me might be Eva. It might be that she was more middle of the road in her positivity negativity. We sort of saw things impact
Do,
her, and
do we
then
think
saw.
mixed tone then, perhaps?
I would say CPM. That's what I would say.
I mean, she had a comment about Maria that I think got a bump ball.
Yeah, I didn't even hear that when it happened, but I heard people talking about it. I was like, what happened?
Yeah. 4?
She was very visible. I mean, very visible. It's easier to be visible when there's only 5 people left, too.
It is also easier to be visible when there's 5 people.
Yeah. We'll go with that for now. Joe. Now, my hot take on Joe is I feel like Joe was barely in this finale. And it was like, I was like, what the hell happened? I thought Joe was going to win, and he's getting no screen time. He got like a confession about like them laying in the mud, and that was it.
Joe is someone who got a positive edit, certainly. But I think we lost some complexity for him this episode. And I think he was like still visible, but maybe not quite as visible as the top 2.
Yeah, I just want to push back on the positive tone, if that's what you were insinuating by him getting a positive edit, Carson, because I just feel like this episode showed how he was not a threat. Because Kyle essentially makes this deal and says, I'm going to take you to the end. And it's very clear by the vote count that that was the correct move because Joe was not winning this game. And what they did show of his final tribal was very underwhelming, was much worse than both what Eva was saying and what Kyle was saying. And he only ends up winning 1 vote from the very first juror. So I find it really difficult, even though I do know that he obviously was instrumental in helping Eva, to think that his tone was positive.
I know, but they didn't like clown on him.
I was on that. I feel like I was actually shocked at how little negativity he got at Final Council. I thought they were going to be like really against him, and it like really wasn't. And when he did answer, even showed David being like smiling, like they didn't vote for him, And it was like underwhelming and kind of like fell like flat like a pancake, but it wasn't like I thought it was gonna be like over the top negative for Joe, and I was surprised at how little it was. So
That's
I think it
why
might have
I'm
been
like
shielded.
thinking he's not complex in this episode. They kind of dumbed him down, but I don't think the content they gave him made it out for him to be a bad person or a negative viewpoint of him. They just made it out like he was about to lose. I
Mm-hmm.
think like they maybe criticized his gameplay approach, but when he's I think they gave him. I think they want us to love Joe,
Yeah,
and I think that's what I interpret the positive edit
yeah,
of, because his whole season has never been one of like being a strategically dominant player. It's always been about him being an older man in touch with his feelings, who's able to actually like access them and support others around him, and this fatherhood figure. And I think that he got a good amount of that in this episode that continued his arc and his story there, even though he
If
didn't
you, if you can clarify for us, North, because I know you know Edgic much better than me and Carson.
clearly
Uh,
I don't.
when you do this Edgic, is it supposed to be more about like the emotion that the audience gets from the person, or more about the person's strategic prowess? Because I kind of understood when we had our conversation weeks ago that like, and like we had this whole conversation whether Shaheen should have any tone, and I was really thinking it was negative because I was thinking like they were showing him in a negative light, and you were like, no, but they're showing him being strategic, and that's positive. I think we ended up deciding mixed. People in the comments were like, I don't see what Josiah was talking about at all. And
yeah,
I,
that's true.
I'm just like, I agree with Carson that over the course of the season and including this finale, he had a very positive emotional content. But I also think this finale showed how he was strategically lacking. And that's why I'm thinking if there's any tone at all, which I don't think there was, it would be not positive.
I think it depends, right? I think I try to factor in all these different elements into the rating. I think in terms of like Joe this episode versus Shaheen in that episode, with that it was like in the past we've seen someone like explicitly being right, or they're figuring something out that no one else is figuring out, and it's like, wow, you're figuring it out, right? And that is different than if someone is just not doing anything, or like just kind of in the middle, or versus like I gave Eva a negative rating last episode, which I don't know if everyone agrees with, but that was because it felt like, oh, like they were really showing how wrong she was, right? Whereas with this, I feel like for Joe, in terms of strategy, I don't think it was like it showed him being like bad. I think it just more showed that Kyle and Kamilla outplayed him and did something better than him. But it wasn't like clowning on Joe or being like, Joe, you messed up, man, you big dummy, you know. And honestly, I actually think Joe had one of his best strategic moments of the season in how he ensured himself not needing to go into fire, where he got Eva and Kyle to both, promise him that they wouldn't put him in fire. And he's talked about in his exit press how like a big thing he did was he really wanted to utilize how connected people were to him so that they would feel extra bad about ever betraying him. And I think that we actually saw him really utilize that to an effective moment in this episode.
I think my thought on this concept is that if someone's seen to be a strategic player like Shaheen, and his like a good episode for him is him figuring things out, him having the correct reads. A bad episode is when he messes up.
Mm-hmm.
Joe's not that player where we're reading his positivity, negativity based on his gameplay, and I don't think it ever has been. I think our positive, negative view of Joe has always been in this other bucket that is not very often used in Survivor, which is this like, purely emotional. We're supposed to connect with stories about the player, and they're using it more often now. But like him screwing up on a vote, I don't think is the point of him being out there, or is the point of him being a character.
That's not his story.
That's not why we're focused. That's not what they want us to feel about him. Like Shaheen, we were supposed to go, oh, he missed it. Like, oh, he's, got the goofy music playing because he's reading this situation wrong. And so I think that the positive, negative kind of scale gets applied to each person's what we're supposed to value about them, like their traits and their skills, and if they're executing on that. And I think that's why I view this episode positively for Joe, even though he got zilch strategic content, and really was kind of like, I think, criticized in a little bit of that.
I'm thinking a middle of the road +3.
I would give him a 2, but that's fine.
I'm not against it. Relative to everyone else in the finale, I guess I agree.
His big peak was last week.
You know what?
Yeah.
Screw it. Let's give him a 2. I was shocked at how little there was, Joe. The episode. And I was holding out hope. I was like, maybe they gave him all that build up last week so that they didn't need to build him up this week, and he's still gonna win. But no.
You had your Joe blinders on. It's all good.
I did. Okay.
A lot of people were upset with how much they thought he was going to win. You know, like,
I know I had people tell me like, I hate that I'm so convinced that Joe's gonna win. I'm like, okay, like.
Oh my god.
He's as far as archetypes go, the like big, strong, less strategic person archetype. Joe's my favorite that we've had in ages for that archetype. And I think that they should do this more. They should lean into other components of what makes them them. But it's hard because people like David think they're the strategic one, and they're not. So
I think Joe's edit, though, is part of the reason that this whole edit that we talked about for like 10 minutes is so complicated and like honestly not good this season, though. I think Joe exemplifies why the edit doesn't really show what happened, because it seems like, yes, everyone loved Joe, and in certain seasons that's a reason why they would vote for him at the end, but he was essentially a goat. Like, he got 1 vote and it seemed like he was going to lose in essentially any combination of those jurors at the end. And like, I think that's really difficult to parse out, how someone is like really beloved, does really amazing things, seems like an amazing person, but also has no real winning potential. And I think that's a difficult place that the show has to try to present someone.
I mean, Carson wouldn't know, but I think Survivor 44 had that, where everyone was like, there's a big fan favorite who's doing the best here, and then gets 0 votes. And you're like, what? Like, 0, like, so you got less votes than Heidi?
Talking about Survivor 44. I saw all those comments where people being like, oh, I thought that was Carson from the Tika Alliance. I'm not Carson from the Tika Alliance. That hurts my feelings, all right? Just because I got his face and his name and he's my biggest op doesn't mean that I am the same guy. And maybe Jeff got confused when he received my audition tape as well, is all I'm saying.
You have a much more pleasant speaking voice than Carson from Survivor, though, so you should pat yourself on the back for that.
I really hope that Carson from Survivor 44 was recruited too. Like, they went and found him. That'd be extra funny. But
I actually don't have criticisms. I didn't watch the season.
point being, this happens, right? And like, sometimes it's hard that someone that's so beloved loses at the end. And sometimes it's easy, with like a Jake, it's like, okay, well, I get it. He clearly didn't do very well. But if someone is really beloved and they played pretty good and then they lose at the end, that's a difficult edit to show. So I agree that is a tough thing. I don't know if I can think of other examples, but.
Yeah, even though I didn't see it, I remember the outcry when Carolyn lost, and by that margin. I mean, she seems great. And I saw her on Traders and was a big fan there. I can see why people are, big fans. They have to work with what they've got. And Joe made the final 3 and lost, and also had these extremely emotional moments that you can't skip. So sometimes the edit just makes itself, and they don't have a lot of agency in that, I think.
Yeah, I
Good
agree.
point.
And I think at the very least, if the jury seemed bitter, it would show more why he lost. But instead, this whole David thing seemed to be a farce. It seemed
I
like
know.
everyone was completely fine with him at the end. And that again makes it even more confusing because
That
it's
was
like,
my big
oh,
confusion.
okay, so he loses, but also you guys don't really like you're not mad at him or anything. So again,
I expected if Joe's gonna lose, they're gonna like rip him to shreds, and they're gonna be super bitter, and they're gonna be like, Joe, you dominated, but we hate you for it, so we're gonna vote for anyone else, you know. But then they didn't even seem to care, so it's like it's really hard to know. Like, it kind of was more the story, I guess, of just how Kyle had a few key moves that got up over Joe and was able to argue that better. But like Joe, other than getting played by Kyle a couple of times, it didn't seem like he did anything that bad. He just didn't really pitch himself very well, and no one really seemed to care all that much to vote for him.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a traditional Survivor player by many tracks. And so he got a very untraditional edit that really screwed with a lot of Edgicers' brains and a lot of viewers' brains and a lot of Facebook moms' brains.
Okay,
all right.
let's talk about Kamilla in the finale. We'll drag it on here. Huge episode for Kamilla. I came out the gate, I was like, oh my gosh, Camilla's gonna win. I had it wrong the whole time. And then, nope, there she goes. Which honestly, I was kind of sad about. I was hoping Kamilla would win, but
What was wrong with her, Flint? Somebody get this girl a new Flint.
they rigged the win. They rigged the win. It's what everyone's been saying all season. Eva, they give her the advantages. They give her. Did they have an assigned little seat where Eva was supposed to sit at fire? Who knows? Big conspiracy, people. No.
You can't rig the jury votes.
Yeah. Look, everyone thought Mary and Star, they're never gonna vote for Eva. They hate her. Look who voted for Eva, people. She's not that bad.
She's not bad.
Kamilla got a great episode. I was so excited for her. It was due, I think. I think we didn't get to see earlier in the season how much she would have won if she was there, because I don't think they wanted us to be disappointed when it was her that went home and not Kyle. They wanted us to be okay with that, and so that's why he got so much more of the screen time in their dynamic. But clearly she played a great game and was inches away from winning. Has a lot to hang her hat on. I mean, she was shown to be complex. She got a positive edit. They finally gave her flowers, and I'm glad that they did.
Yeah. Seemed like they were trying to avoid the Jesse edit in a way that, like, everyone says, oh, Kamilla would have swept the jury if she was at the end. And that makes sense, but at the time we were like, why is Kamilla suddenly getting no confessionals at all? What's happening? And this is why, because it was built into that.
Yeah. This is why Edgic is a pretty cool thing to do, because you can look at her episodes there and see that she's the one that loses fire. You don't know exactly how it's going to work out, but you know Kyle's going to go further than her and have a better chance than her to win it, just based on how the edit has been going for the two of them, even though they've played very similar games and were never on different tribes from each other, and worked together on basically everything. These little confessional differences matter. And part of me was like, is this just because they tend to over edit the men in these like pairs? And sometimes that's the case. In this case, I think that it was because she lost, he won, and they didn't want us feeling bitter like we do sometimes about who went home at 4. And so they actually, I think, did an okay job of giving her flowers at the end here in a way that felt meaningful.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. That said, I think if anything, this edit was maybe a slight disservice to Kamilla, only just because I think she's going to be less remembered in the community and therefore have a less of a chance of ever returning to the show, even though she was clearly one of the best players, if not the best strategic player on this season, and was super close to winning. This is the kind of person I would love to see back for a future season, and I have the feeling she's going to get kind of lost in the marsh.
Kamilla wishes she was Cassidy and she got the response that the Cassidy stands have given. Like, I think Kamilla, I would love to see play again. I totally agree. Let me know where I can sign, and I will do it.
We can talk about that. We can talk about
for this episode,
people coming
though.
back
Are
at the
we
end.
thinking CPP? Are we even thinking OTTP? I don't know, but like I'm kind of torn between those because while I do think it was definitely a positive leaning episode for her, she got a lot of content, and especially just like the content about how she would have won. I don't know if it veered into over the top territory, especially her come from behind win.
That was great. That
I don't
slayed.
know.
I think that over the top, it's not just because like visibility tells you how much they got. Over the top is also like they go like beyond like you kind of would rather be a complex personality than an over the top in a lot of situations. So I feel like we still got a lot of like sense of her talking about her strategy and her outside of the game and her journey. So I think there was a lot of Kamilla screen time, but I don't think it was like over the top. I think we got a very clear sense of who she was.
I loved all the content about her kind of putting down that negative voice in her head and listening to the more positive one. And I'm glad that we got to experience that with her. I will say, like, during the actual fire making, it did not appear to me that that was what happened. And I was like, this kind of hurts to watch because I feel like you're getting really down on yourself right now and like really discrediting. Glad that we wrapped back around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
You will be
thinking
missed, Camilla.
I'm thinking a complex personality +5 on Kamilla in this episode.
She's probably the most visible one. Yeah.
All right. And then Mitch. Josiah's favorite player of the season.
Oh my god.
MVP. I'm
yeah, we
thinking
can just give him a middle of the road too, right?
I was gonna say an over the top positive,
Oh, okay.
but like a low visibility, but because I feel like it was like there was like a whole big thing of like, oh, Mitch is getting voted out, and he's like, oh, it's okay, I'll accept it, and this is my journey, and yada yada.
Go look for an idol, Mitch. Jesus Christ.
I know.
No, and he even said I should have made a move, and like that was literally his entire story of the post merge is he should have made the damn move, and so like I have a hard time parsing that out as a positive. I think he had no tone. I think they were just trying to have a positive send off for him, but the players did not care because he was never part of their plans.
I think that like the in-game perception of him and the out-of-game perception of him have been vastly different. Yeah. Like when Jeff comments at the finale that like he had a good chance to win, I think that like he actually thinks that's true. Although Jeff has some bad reads sometimes, but I think that like him being an incredibly sociable player, if he's being mixed into this Kamilla Kyle camp or something and is able to get to the end, maybe he did have a better chance to win than Joe and Eva. We just didn't get a lot of screen time from it, and we kept seeing him not make the move because he loses, and that's why we got shown that. But like maybe he does have one of these like underdog. He wins the last two challenges finally. He like makes one move at the right time and then wins the season. Edits. It could have been possible, and I see
he could have been Marianne.
However, he didn't. He got 5th. He got voted out without ever making the move. So we had to see that. We had to see the story. It's going to be his legacy. In an unfortunate way, he missed his shot. He never clutched up. Happens to a lot of players. And I don't think it was necessarily like... I don't necessarily think it was positive because he's always been shown to be like a funny guy. He's been good and sociable, but his edit kind of culminated in this, yep, you missed your shot moment. And versus Joe, where his edit was all about the emotion, Mitch's edit has been strategic. It has been, about whether he was capable of doing this move. And every single episode he talks about being on the outs. We get strategic, moments from him. And we conclude in him giving up, it kind of seemed like to me, even though I'm sure that's not what happened. And so it was like, we like the guy, but you kind of missed your shot, was the way that I interpreted his edit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mitch's best chance was if Kamilla didn't win that immunity. I think Kamilla probably would have been voted out at 5 if anyone else had won. And then as soon as she won, everyone had just decided, well, he's going, because Joe, Eva, and Kyle were so close the entire game. They were never turning on each other. And whether they hit another idol on that beach or they didn't, there really wasn't a shot for him to play at that point. It kind of was a bummer because it was so much time during the episode devoted to this is the most straightforward vote ever. But I don't think Mitch's edit during that time was positive. They were trying to give him a send off. That was clear, but I don't think it was a positive. Okay, over the top mix. Sure.
Over the top mix too. How's that? I mean, I really disagree. I feel like it was such like swelling thing, and oh, Mitch, what has this journey been about for you? And it was like, oh, Mitch, we gotta vote him out because he's the most likable guy on the island. They've been saying this the whole season. Every episode they say Mitch is the big threat because he's so likable, and the audience goes, what? We don't get that, but they keep saying it. It's in the edit, so it has to mean something. But if you guys want to go mixed, I'll go mixed.
Every single episode, I think it's time to make a move. Oh, never mind. Not yet. And then this time he goes, I think he actually said, like, I should have made a move. And that's what I'm grounding myself in.
So it made him look a little bit like a numpty. Okay, I'll take that. We'll give it a mixed. That's a fair assessment. He
also seems like a great person that has, like, value beyond his Survivor game, and I hope he lives a happy life. But like, as far as his edit this episode, they kind of were like, come on, Mitch, you missed it. That's
okay. Well, that is the final Edgic ratings of the season. We can take a quick look at the contender chart. Well, here's what all the Edgic ratings were to review. Wow. Look at them, they're great. I did.
Let's point something out here. You never had Kyle at number 1.
Well, hold on. So, hold on. In the finale, because the finale is multiple rounds, I did contender rankings for each round. Okay. And if we take a look, Kyle, number 1, going into the final 3. Bing, bing, bing.
But you had him number 3 going into the final 4?
Well, it was mostly because I was so sold on Kamilla at that point, and then I was like, I don't want to bring Joe down that
Are you kidding me? Joe had no screen time that first hour.
Hey, listen, we didn't know yet. Okay, he could have went back up.
You were so blinded by Joe. Kyle was winning from a long freaking time ago, and I pointed that out when I was on your show for episode 7.
I was blinded by him being on the not complicated tribe, but there was a comment that made sense to me that was like, in 3 tribes, that strategy doesn't really work. Yeah. And I was like, you're so right, commenter. I don't remember your name, but the complicated tribe strategy doesn't work when one tribe just loses every single time in a 3 tribe format. Yeah.
I think on terms of the complex tribe thing, I think that's right. And I have heard that before, and that commenter was very right, that it really only lets you eliminate the least complex tribe and not narrow it down to the most. Like in this case, Vula definitely seemed like the least complex tribe, even though they were going to council. I called that out. A lot of people called that out, and obviously none of them even made the final 6. So that was true. I just felt like this season specifically compared to other previous seasons, it just felt so extreme to me. Like I really thought that Lagi was so much more complex that I really was sold on a Lagi winner. And listen, that was wrong, but
when are we going to bounce back and the Survivor Boomerang is going to return? They're going to super care about challenge performances in the early stage again, because this has been like 4 seasons in a row where they voted out people that were like decent at challenges, and then their tribe gets decimated and the best player gets like 6th place, you know? And I think we're going to like return. I think we're going to return a little bit, and I don't want this, but I think we're going to return to seeing them vote out people they think are weak, because they're going to be like, we can't be that tribe. We can't be the one that loses every single one in the pre-merge and none of us have a chance.
So, to be
fair to Vula, Kevin did dislocate his shoulder in the first challenge. So even the one person that was good at challenges got injured. So,
I saw this thing online, and I was thinking about how it would potentially work during the season, but I was like, it's only twice. It's not a pattern. But I think 3 times makes it a pattern now. But every single time in the new era, when one tribe comes complete to the merge, They vote out one of their own, the person who was not part of it, and then that tribe has the winner. So this happened in 41 where they got rid of Sydney and then Erica won. This happened in 45 when they got rid of J Maya and then D won. And this just happened now where they got rid of Charity and then Kyle wins. And again, this could just be chance, but I think it's interesting that every single time that a group of 6 comes into this merge, they decide, probably strategically, we don't want to seem threatening, so we're going to get rid of this person who never really belonged with us. We're going to shrink a little bit, and for whatever reason, it keeps spinning out that somehow it leads to a winner as well. So I don't know how much stock to take in this if in 49 there's a tribe that dominates again, but I think it's something to look out for.
That's a good point. But I also think we look at what was their name? The Blue Tribe last season. They voted out one person, so they did have that, but then they got like decimated at the merge. And then like Nami on 46 was like destroying every challenge. They only had a medevac, and then they got completely decimated as well. So it can go either way, but in terms of specifically all 6 making the merge, you're right. I think that is.
It's a unique thing to point out, and it goes against your complex tribe strategy. And I heard this earlier on this season, and at the time I was like, I don't see a winner from this tribe. I was like, maybe David, maybe Kyle, but at this point they were low in my contender rankings. And then as the season progressed, I thought about this more, and I was like, Kyle's getting a lot more screen time and a lot more credit for some of these votes. So maybe that's part of the reason why I thought he was going to win a few weeks back. But
I think
knowing people and having spent time with them gives you options.
Good point.
I think something that I talked about on a comment section somewhere was that I was starting to think like, okay, if Kyle does win, and I wasn't like out on it ever, but I thought, okay, maybe if there is anything to take away from this, is think maybe more about complex alliance or complex like group rather than necessarily so defined by the original tribes, because a lot of people said they thought New Vula was the complex tribe of the season. That was really, and I was like, that was true in some ways. And then I think like the strong 5, 6, whatever they were at various points, they were the complex like group. Even Kamilla kind of got ousted at one point. Whereas David, Kyle, Joe, Eva, Shaheen, those are like the biggest edited people of the season. So maybe that's something to not look so much at the original tribes, but what is the complex like group of the season, and who's the most important from that?
I have a question, and I'm changing the topic. Warning.
Can I finish? Can I say one more thing before we change topic?
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to say about like Kyle's edit compared to the other people is that I felt like, and this never convinced me enough to put him as top contender, but I did think, okay, he has the most confessionals, right? He's like statistically getting the most screen time. And I was like, maybe in a sense that is to make up for the fact that he wins and beats like Joe and Eva, who clearly have the more emotional moments, the more story, but they have to like decrease Joe's confessional count and increase Kyle's so that the audience understands why Kyle would beat Joe, right? If they had the same confessional count, or if Kyle had less than Joe, then it would be like, what the hell happened? It'd be an uproar, right? So that's another thing I think in terms of the analysis, I can see how Kyle winning makes sense compared to the others.
Yeah.
Now you, Carson.
I just wanted to I had a fun exercise. Ignoring any spoilers or theories we've seen about Survivor 50, I would love it if we each pick one person from this cast that we would like to see again, and pick one person that we'd love to see them interact with from a different season. And I just want to do that thought experiment.
I love that too. I was thinking, so let's talk about 50 to wrap it up, and that. Is there any other notes on like the Kyle journey or the winner edits for anyone? And then we can talk about the thought experiment. Okay, I think we've covered it well. So congrats, Kyle, one last time. A deserved win. Listen, I was on Joe and Eva's team the whole time. You know, oh my gosh, I freaking lost the draft, man. I had Joe, Eva, and Mitch, my entire team in the finale, and I lost. I was the devastation. The devastation.
Thank God I didn't listen to that commenter that said that I should pick Mary.
Yeah. Good thing you didn't, because she did go out next.
Josiah, and I was like, maybe I should do it now that this commenter said it, because it'd be funny, and I didn't, and I was right.
Now I feel a little bit okay though, because my winner pick and draft team member did win Australian Survivor this year. So although my winner pick Joe did not, he came very close. I feel calm. So I'm at peace with the Kyle win. I think it was very well deserved. So returner people from this season.
Who do you want? It doesn't have to be someone who's realistic. It's who do you want, and who from another Survivor season are you plucking out of thin air and putting on the same tribe as them, and it's your dream come true.
Do you have someone? I mean, you're posing this question to us, so it sounds like you've already been thinking, Carson.
I've been thinking a little bit. I don't have a firm decision. I think I'm a bit of a chaos fan. Like, I would love to see Say, and I would love to see her interact with, like, Abby Marie.
Absolutely. That's iconic television. I would be so down for 50 if that happened.
Could you imagine their tribe?
You were reading my mind, honestly. I was thinking, who's the best person to pair with Say? And Abby's the perfect person.
Really
they would start a great alliance that would disintegrate in a couple hours.
And then end up hating each other the rest of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what would happen.
Or like I would love to see David play with someone who would like really get under his skin. Someone like
like a super nerd, like Drew
I was thinking
Basile
like John
or someone.
Cochran. Yeah, I was thinking like Adam Klein David combo would be insane.
Like someone that like really like who's like someone that like really hates like honor alliances.
I forget her last name, but Hannah from Millennials versus Gen X and David on the same starting tribe.
Hannah Shapiro. Maybe Teeny from last season.
Yeah, Teeny would be a good one.
Yeah.
Maybe like Eliza Orleans.
Oh, Eliza would hate David. That's a good one. That would be a good
below feud. What combo you would like to see.
I will say, I don't have an answer for that, but I do think that Kamilla and Shaheen are two people that I think you throw them on a different season. They're very different. They play very differently. I think that those would probably be the two most interesting people to see play again, based on I think it would give the most different experience. I would say my like dark horse pick of who I really want to see again is Thomas. I was so excited for Thomas at the beginning of the season. I don't know who I want to see him with, but any ideas?
I was thinking like someone like Courtney Yates. I feel like he would just like
that's a good combo.
Who's just like matching the same kind of sarcastic energy. I think he found that a little bit in Bianca, but she was a little bit under edited, and so I think that combo would be pretty fun. Or maybe him with Sandra. I don't know.
Thomas and Venus.
Sandra! Oh my god, Thomas and Sandra.
Sandra would be crazy.
Would be awesome. We can still speculate because the cast isn't out yet.
Yeah. I think
it would be interesting to see like Joe, if he does happen to be on 50, with an older school player, where it's like he's the new school equivalent of that type of game. Is he able to transition, or is he able to bridge the gap in a way that's productive? I don't know.
Oh, I can imagine now, like Joe and Colby like doing a one-on-one challenge, and then they like dap each other up, walking back to the mats. You know, like
you manifested it. I think
it's happening. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are definitely a lot of the top picks to.
Oh, do I want to say something toxic?
Okay.
Sorry, this might get me canceled. But I think it would be at least interesting. Probably really, really bad, like politically. But like if we got Eva and Nayanka,
Oh, oh, oh
or
my
Mitch and Nayanka, I think Nayanka with like any of these new era people would just be completely terrible.
Or what was it? Alicia from One World?
Oh, or Alicia from One World. That would actually probably be even worse.
There is some pretty tough old school Survivor contestants that should never come back. That's my truth.
No, I mean it's fair.
Wow. I also, on a different note, I thought, you know what? David and Coach would be really fun.
David and Coach.
That would be a good combo.
Not impossible.
Like, oh, I want to see.
Do you think they would get along, or do you think they would just think each other's full of shit?
Like there could be a frenemy situation, maybe. I think that they would both be like, "We're going to the end together."
I got one.
Okay, go ahead.
Mary in Rome. She's like, again?
No, even worse. Like on bigger steroids. Like he's chasing her down through the woods.
What were you gonna say, North?
I was gonna say like David and Colby, and then it's like the Superman in the fat suit. Like David's like, oh yeah, strong alliance, Colby, let's go. And then Colby like doesn't do very well. He's like, I thought you would be in the strong alliance, but like you're lacking here.
Eva and Maria.
Oh yeah, now that they've actually had a little bit of beef.
after the
there already.
I don't think they're both making out of that first tribe.
Probably not.
Have either of you watched Australian Survivor at all?
Yeah, not all
Only
of it.
a couple seasons.
A good bit of it.
Do you know? Can I just say the name of someone?
Yeah, of course.
You know Harry?
Yeah.
Harry, he wore the shirt that said
Harry.
ice cream on it. And I think Harry and Justin on a tribe together would be really fun. The pizza
awesome.
and the ice cream guy.
That's awesome.
That's a thought. Justice for Justin. Okay, I was saying this to some friends. This guy got screwed so bad. If he was like remotely a bigger, wackier personality, it would be like he'd be on fast track to second chances too. You know? Yeah. I'm like, but poor Justin, he got screwed so bad.
He got screwed pretty bad.
Yeah, but you can say that about a lot of people this season, you know? I think essentially the whole pre-merge, like you could argue people like got screwed. Like Thomas got screwed by the fact that there was an idol in Kyle and Kamilla. You could argue Bianca got screwed for the same opposite reason about telling Cedric about that whole thing. You could argue that Kevin got screwed because his shoulder was dislocated. Like essentially, like there's always a reason to believe this player is screwed and deserves another chance. But like there's only so many chances, and no offense to Justin, I'm sure he's lovely, but he did not bring TV.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, this is my last one. And I actually will preface this by saying I think we've seen enough of Suri, even if she's back. I love her, and I don't need to see her on Survivor again. But if we're bringing her back, give her Mitch. He'll never flip on her. She'll finally get her win.
Yeah, he'll never make the move.
He'll never make the move.
Or Joe.
Yes, why not Joe?
I want her to be on the Boston Robcast with people that don't know who she is and do whatever she says.
Yeah, rigged the win.
Rigged wins. Let's hope that's not actually the under.
She won something.
She did. She
got her win.
Yeah, she got a win. I mean, we're still probably going to see her again in a few months.
How about this? Can we see a tribe of all of the 17th place club icons? Put Kevin on with Jess and Brandon and Zach and
we've lost a couple of good 17th placers. We've lost a lot of dud 17th placers.
Yeah, I'm like, why 17th place? No offense, but I don't really want to see any of those.
They have a
people you
big
listed
group
back.
chat. It's a big thing. They're the 17th place club.
I'm sure that we would learn a lot. I mean, there are a couple of people that didn't do great their first time that we've grown to love in their second time, and it has been far too long since we've had a returning season on Survivor because these multi-season storylines are critical to fandom and longevity of the show. So I really hope they do a returnee season like 52. That's like a second chance equivalent. People are like, please, please, please give us another one right after because we want these people. We want more people as well. But yeah, maybe Kevin would be a standout in his second season would be, such an amazing change from the first one. It'd be really entertaining. But I don't think I need all 17th placers on a season.
No, I think that's a, no offense, North, but a really F tier idea for returnee season.
I don't remember hating on your guys' ideas so much. Jeez.
Gotta have some fun.
17th place season. That's not a good idea.
I like the idea of giving a couple of people that were pre-mergers a second chance. But
I think in general, I mean, you get the Kelly Wentworth effect, but like a whole cast of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
At least make it a whole cast of pre-merge people. Don't limit it to 7.
Yeah, I agree. Pre-merge. Give me Claire Rafson.
Was that 44?
Number one pick. It's 44.
Why?
Yeah.
Why Claire Rafson? That's like the most random person.
I love Claire. She was so good. She was on the sidelines talking to Matthew when he was sitting out of the challenge. She was sitting out of every challenge. She was great.
I can't wait to see, North, the Edgic predictions you've got for 49 based on just like the preview.
Lots of ideas. Gonna be talking about 49. Gonna be talking about 50. That cast coming out soon. Gonna be predicting Australia versus the world before it happens.
Ooh.
All kinds of stuff. Maybe I had this idea too. I thought I want to rank the new era placements, like based on how the average quality of the people in that placement. So it's like 17th place. That's a pretty good one. But like, I don't know, like 10th place. They all stink. I don't know. But
that seems incredibly just based on views in your
yeah,
vibes.
just my opinion.
I'd watch the shit out of that.
Yeah, I was like, wait a sec, are you trying to like Edgic this? And like,
no.
Like,
that's just how much I like the people in the placement.
Okay.
So did you guys have winner picks at the very beginning of the season?
I didn't do
Mary.
That's right. You and Mary. Hey, that's not terrible. 7th place.
Yeah.
Not terrible.
She was my draft. I picked Mary.
So, was doing it. Well, I think that's Survivor 48. Any parting thoughts from Carson and Josiah about the season? Anything we've talked about that we didn't finish talking about?
Thanks for having us again.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Hopefully I didn't bring too much negativity to your channel.
No. Listen, it's great to get contrasting thoughts. I know a lot of people did not like this season very much. Maybe I'll do a video. I'll talk about my ranking. I don't even think it's the worst of the new era. I would put several new era seasons below this one personally. But
He's keeping his mouth shut.
Didn't like that, huh? Well, let's say, hey.
We all have different takes here. I will respect your take just the same way you respect mine.
Yeah. I'm excited to see the content continue to roll, North.
For sure. It's been an
absolute... You're doing a great job on this channel. Good job repping Northwestern Survivor, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Go check out Northwestern Survivor.
Carson is in season 1 if you want to go retroactively and watch that. I'm in season 2.
For season 1.
That's right. Yeah.
Season 2, we got a few episodes out, and maybe the rest will come out at some point. Who knows? But season 5, that's airing right now.
This video if you went and watched me or Josiah, and if you still like us.
To be fair, that was 5 years ago. Like, we've changed, we've evolved, I think, for the better, so...
All right. Well, thanks everyone so much. It's been so much fun. Thank you, Carson and Josiah, for coming on. It's been a blast talking about Survivor 48 in the past and currently with you guys. And maybe we'll see your faces again soon, talking about a different show, a different season. And you certainly will see my face again, talking about any other reflections on 48 videos I might have, or videos for future stuff coming soon that I'll talk about in a different segment. But thank you. All right. And I just want to say one more time, such a huge, huge, huge thank you to everybody that has been watching these videos over the course of Survivor 48. It has been an absolute blast and a blessing to be able to do this every week. The support has been really fantastic. It's been super meaningful to me, and it really gives me something to look forward to and be excited about every week. So I really appreciate everybody that watches, that likes the videos, that comments on the videos, that gives me thoughts, that has, debated me on Edgic. Obviously, I wasn't right about everything, but I tried my best. And I really appreciate all the people in the comments that either agreed or disagreed with me. It's been super fun to read over the course of the season. And I'm definitely very excited to be doing it more in the future. I'm definitely going to do it for Australia versus the world. Very excited for that season coming up. And we'll be back for Survivor 49 as well. In terms of off-season content, I talked about it a little bit, but I definitely have some ideas. I want to talk about, maybe some general concepts in Edgic, kind of, explain some terms and whatnot in my perspective on general concepts. Maybe some theories from seasons past that were either popular theories in the community or theories of myself, and dissect those a little bit, as well as maybe make some videos, a few more. I'm not necessarily done with Survivor 48 yet. I think I might do a video talking a little bit about my opinions on it and some rankings, stuff like that, as well as stuff leading up to future seasons, talking about the cast of 49, the cast of 50, the cast of Australia versus the world. We got a lot of great stuff coming up. And I mean, if we have any other shows, maybe I'll talk about Big Brother at some point. I don't know if we can do Edgic for Big Brother, but I'm interested to see if I can fit the square peg in the round hole, So I definitely have some super awesome plans moving forward. So make sure to keep check back in. Press the subscribe button if you have enjoyed the videos, or if this is your first video, or if you've never watched a video of mine and you want to see the future videos. Press the subscribe button so you can see it. And also, I want to say, do not forget to go check out Survivor Northwestern Into the Gauntlet. I'm on there. And I also had a big hand in post-production. So please, 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 please go check it out. It's really good. It's a good season. It gives you Survivor fix in the Survivor off-season. And we've had some people, again, doing some Edgic over there for it. Jacob and Seablaze and Lil Rexy. I appreciate you guys so much doing the Edgic for it. Really means a lot. The cast and the crew have been through the roof reading all that Edgic stuff. So if anyone else, just go check it out. Go watch it. I would very much appreciate it. And that's all I have. I'm super grateful to have such a great community over the course of this season. We've really cultivated some great stuff and some great discussion I've enjoyed, and I hope that we can continue the discussion in the future. So that's about all I have to say. Congratulations, Kyle. Congrats to us. We didn't predict the winner, but we were pretty close. And I will see you all in the next video. Stay frosty, y'all.